Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Kevin here with Kevin Cracks Cards, and welcome to my first video series on my YouTube channel, that is Cryptid Camp Commentary. In this series, we'll talk about getting better at Cryptid Camp, showing off some gameplay, and why I myself and why other players make certain decisions they do in Cryptid Camp, because Cryptid Camp is a very hard game, and we're going to teach it to you to play it well and all that. I'm playing against John here. John is one of my best friends, and I'm also, playing the game. And John's playing a starter deck. This is actually a second game of Cryptid Camp ever, and this is like my 15th game of Cryptid Camp, so I'm a little more experienced. I'm playing a monofluorite deck here, and I think monofluorite is the strongest mono type deck lantern in the game, as is, because of the draw power it has and the discard power it has to generate a lot of value. I was pretty fortunate. I had two of the card readings in my hand. Card reading is the strongest card in the game you want to have access to as a fluorite player on the first turn. If you can play card reading on the first turn, please do that. I was lucky to have two card readings on turn 1, which means that I could play both of them on turn 1 because I had an extra lantern to play it with. And here I am playing my Resurrection Marys. Very, very strong card early game. One of the best early game drops for fluorite, as fluorite is reliant on the fog for value. I also am kind of thinking if I want to play a Hungry Ghost early on, as is. In terms of my card readings, I am discarding particularly I'm discarding cryptids I'm not able to use right away, as is. Before we go to John's second turn here, let's talk a little bit about this board position, as it's already pretty interesting. So John's playing the Malachite and Lapis starter deck, which means he has access to swimmers, he has access to diggers, and this could be an issue. In Cryptid Camp, there's a concept I like to think about called safety zones. And safety zones, the idea of that is it is basically areas that we know our cryptids are probably going to be safe. In Cryptid Camp, to play well, we need to make a lot of assumptions against the deck we're playing against. It helps if we know what type of deck we're playing against, and we also have a clarity. These are supposed to be face down. These companions are supposed to be face down as is with the Lalarena and Bigfoot, but they're face up because this is our second game playing with these decks, and we kind of know our playstyles already and the kinds of decks we are facing. So let's walk through what I'm thinking of my logic here and why I played only two cryptids as is in these positions. So in my head, I'm going to assume that John is essentially playing a swimmer and a non-swimmer. He is very obviously playing a swimmer over here. How do I know he's playing a swimmer? How do I know that? Well, I know that because he put his cryptid here in the back line, in this back row here. And I can infer that John is playing a swimmer in the back row, because the only reason to play cryptid in the back row early on is two reasons. It's either preemptive, because you're trying to protect yourself from getting attacked by other back row threats, or it's going to be aggressive. He's trying to go and attack later on into this back row over here. So this is probably a swimmer, like I put asterisk because it's probably a swimmer. And this over here is probably going to be a non-swimmer. We can kind of assume this will be a non-swimmer in this position over here. So if John has a swimmer, I know that my safety zones are more limited. I know that John's swimmer can attack this card over here. I also know that a non-swimmer can attack this card over here. So these areas can be explored next turn by John, potentially. If these were both 1-drops, they were both 1 vision, then John can go and use both of them to get good value. But I know according to the card pool, the only way for John to get out a swimmer that's one vision is with rain, which John doesn't have access to. So probably he's only going to play one of these cards on his turns, as is. So if I know John can attack this area here, row 4, or square 4 of my camp, and he can also attack camp number 2 over here, I know that these areas will probably be safe. So I'm going to highlight these as green. So these green areas here are what I'm going to call my safety zones. And I can safely play my cryptids here because I know his swimmer can attack over here. I know that his non-swimmer can attack me, most likely. So because of that, I know these green areas are safe. With that logic in mind, I'm going to play aggressively here. So I also need to utilize my lantern advantage as a second player. So in order to utilize my lantern advantage as a second player, I'm going to go and play early game 1-drops, like the Resurrection Mary. And doing that, I can essentially, in theory, get 2 evidence on my second turn by doing this double exploration. I want to do a double exploration by turn 2, essentially. Ideally, we want to go and target these areas for evidence. We want to get evidence in these areas on turn 2. So that is the goal. That is the goal in my head. That is why I placed the Resurrection Marys in the areas I put them in, because I know that probably safe from this middle swimmer here, and I'm safe from this swimmer over here. And yeah, I also know my safety zones as is. I only played Resurrection Marys also because I only have 2 to spend next turn, and I don't know what he's going to play to attack me next turn or explore against me. I don't know what he's going to play in advance. So I'm only going to play my Marys to play on curve. And because I know I have 3 lanterns coming up, 3 vision coming up next turn. And if that's what I have to work with, well, I'm going to work within my means to save up any vision I have for another effect. Thinking back a little bit, why did I put only the Marys down and not my Hungry Ghost? I was thinking about putting the Hungry Ghost preemptively. The reason for that is because my Marys both cost 1 vision because of my current vision I have. And I'm also going to need to have another vision on turn 2 to play my Fog on curve. Ideally, we want to spend all of our vision every single turn if possible within the entire turn cycle to not waste any vision and to just, stay on tempo. So because of that, it doesn't make sense to play cards beyond what we could play in future turns. For now, just playing my Marys is the safest bet in order for us to stay on curve and safely play our cards. Because what we don't want in Cryptid Camp is to play a face down card and have it be discarded because we don't have the vision to pay for it. So that is the logic there. Okay, so going on to John's second turn here, he sees me play the Resurrection Marys. I know my safety zones against John. He gets a little unlucky because he doesn't have the color fixing. He gets 2 Malachite Lanterns, so he can't play any of his Lapis Cryptids, unfortunately. Here I'm thinking of my discard pile. I'm trying to count because I have the Spiritualist card. So with Spiritualist, I need to have 5 Cryptids in my discard pile to get maximum value. So John does reveal the Gummeroo here. Gummeroo costs 2 vision, so he's playing on the curve. Good for him. He's getting the free exploration, but that's okay. And here I am thinking of what I am going to play on my later turn, as is. John's also currently thinking, hey, what kind of face down card is going to play in response. But John's going to stick with this board state because if he does play anything in the front rows, it could be discarded because he knows I'm probably going to attack into those front rows later on. So my first Resurrection Mary is going to go and get out my weather effect. I'm also going to get 2 explorations here, do a search, shuffle up the deck. I see the Delta and I see the forest pop up. And right now my hand is pretty huge because I got these card readings going on. And like I said before, I played the Fog and the Marys on curve. Again, always trying to stay on curve if possible. I believe here I have about enough cryptids on my discard pile to almost play Spiritualist. Let's go back a little bit here. So the key thing with the Hungry Ghost is basically one of the best Malchite counters in the game because it can remove as many of the patches as possible from cryptids. It's very, very, very strong card with a lot of disruption. So I do have to play it at some point. If John does start playing the backpack card to start pumping up his Gummeroo, I'm going to counter that on my turn 3 with my Hungry Ghost. I also played the Aku Aku here. Aku Aku takes some time to scale up, and eventually my Resurrection Marys will get outscaled because of their cost. So in the meantime, I'm going to play Aku Aku, preparing to scale up by destroying Resurrection Marys or even a Hungry Ghost with the Aku Aku effect. So it's best to prepare in advance. I also put these 2 cards down because I am playing on curve with the vision I have, because next turn I'm going to have 4 vision. So good to keep in mind. So John does get the Lapis Lantern here, being able to play on curve effectively. We've got the Wariyama here, the Gummeroo. So John here is going to go and explore that back site over here, square number 4, I believe, from my site. So I'll get that evidence. We had 3 evidence as is. And it only makes sense for him to re-explore with the Gummeroo because he knows it's a little bit of a race right now. It's kind of a race because with the Marys, I'm going to keep on getting evidence constantly. So he has to keep up tempo with me or try to stop me out. So here, I immediately start porting my Marys into defense mode. And the reason I do that is because if he does try to attack me later on, I want to make sure that I'm not giving away evidence as is. Additionally, I don't need to be attacking anything on the Mary since nothing is in the front rows. So I am going to put Mary's in defense mode because I'm getting value no matter what either way. I do decide to play the Aku Aku here as is, since I do see the Wariyama and the Gummeroo. He's probably going to play some strong stuff later on, so I do got to start scaling up. I do keep him in defense mode as is. Doesn't make sense to be an attack. I also played Aku Aku because John did play a back row swimmer, most likely, in his rightmost back row, according to us right now. So there could be an Aku Aku, there could be a swimmer attacking Aku Aku pretty soon. So trying to prepare in advance for that. So here I'm pondering because I do have an extra 2 lantern to play, 2 vision. So I was thinking about playing my, either holding up 2 lanterns for defense or also playing my, or playing my Hungry Ghost. But I do decide to just keep on pumping up my discard pile with another card reading so I can get more value from my Spiritualist. Seems like a pretty safe bet for me. I do discard the Weather here, the Fog Weather, because I already have one, and I know in his deck he doesn't have any environmental removal, so that's good to keep in mind. So yeah, pretty standard play here. I get 2 more evidence with my Mary, each of them coexisting and just pumping up some more evidence for me. So here I do kind of know that if I continue the way I'm going right now with the Marys, I'm basically have a positive curve over John. I currently have tempo because of the Marys' low cost. If it keeps going the way it's going, I'm going to stay ahead of John, even going second. So it's pretty easy to get ahead going second if you stick to these lower cost cards like the Marys. Now John is going to play a Ninja here, which I got really lucky since Ninja is able to counter these hidden entities. And fortunately, luckily, I didn't know he had Ninja. It could have been Fiji Mermaid or whatever. I probably should have predicted he had Ninja because he was going to go on turn 4, and Ninja was a turn 4 swimmer. But I was able to play Aku Aku in time and not get hit by Ninja's hidden entity removing effect. Either way, Ninja is stronger than Aku Aku, unfortunately, so he is going to remove Aku Aku, but I am going to turn over a trail, which will buff up Aku Aku for the future. And John has made a very good play, just to showcase it a little more. So basically what John did is he basically moved his card over here that was originally in this spot over here, in this middle back row spot, moved it over to our left side over here, and then Maruyama basically swam up and used a similar effect to get this card placement effect here. Cryptid Camp is pretty unique in a sense that you do need to pay attention to positioning a lot. You got to pay attention to like being able to swap with your face down cards, get maximum value face down cards, and then do these kind of movement plays. Face down hidden entities have a lot of value in helping you to maneuver around the camp and get more value with positioning in this way. So keep in mind using hidden entities to get maximum movement value. So Gumroad is actually going to go and attack into me right here. And I do have the Black-Eyed Children, which is a 1 cost because of the fog. Kind of expected him to attack me because he doesn't know my deck super well. He doesn't know the cost of Black-Eyed Children. And Gumroad trades, or doesn't actually trade into Black-Eyed Children at all. So that was pretty lucky for me. So John overall did 4 evidence because his Ninja attacked the defense mode Aku Aku, fortunately. And that was good for me. So it is turn 5. I am going to play a La Lorena here. It's kind of a little early on to play the La Lorena. But I do decide to play La Lorena because the win condition of my deck is built around the La Lorena as is. I was also very lucky because, pausing here, I was very lucky because since John kept all of his openings here, he kept not protecting his sites, I was able to just get 3 more evidence as is. So in Cryptid Camp, you have to make some very particular choices. If you're going against a very aggressive deck like mine, you have to either try to stall against me by putting cryptids in those spots where they could get explored, or you got to chase me down. So either remove me or chase me down. If you can't chase me down or remove me, you're not going to be able to catch up, even if you're going first. So keep that in mind. I think John here, instead of trying to outpace me, because he doesn't know my deck entirely, but he does know that I have 2 of these Resurrection Marys, which have gotten me 6 evidence in total at this point in the game, just with 2 cards and its repetitive explorations, just staying where they are. I think he should have tried to get rid of them, or at least put some cryptids in the front rows, because if he did that, he wouldn't have had so much evidence bleeding. I wouldn't have gained so much evidence if he just blocked in these front rows and just defended it. So put some Gumroos there. He may not be getting evidence against me, but he is preventing me from getting more. So sometimes you got to prevent your opponent from getting more evidence. Here I am telling John that I do also get my forest flipped over, so that's very good. So John sees that I have this massive row of spirits against him, so he does play his companion here, especially since I had my companion. And unfortunately for him, I did put everything in defense mode. This way so I can prevent myself from losing out on evidence and, bleeding too much as is. So it's very good. John is going to struggle also against this La Lorena because La Lorena has so much defense as is. If you are playing against La Lorena as a Malachite player, Lapis player, you got to have some kind of removal to deal with it. Lapis has some good removal, but tends to be adjacent removal. And Malachite has very little removal against the back row, with the exception of, say, a Mongolian Deathworm, and maybe like a buffed up Hodag with Digger or something like that. Same thing with the Kajanok and Lapis. So, yeah, John is going to play John has at this point, he realizes a little too late. He needs to try to block against me. And he just moves up his Cryptids in the back row, his Summers, and moving, unfortunately, does take up their adventure action, but he's going to stop the bleeding of him losing evidence. Bigfoot's going to come in, going to remove the Black-Eyed Children, and, because if you don't know, the companions do have haste, essentially. They come in ready to use right away. Haste is a magic term, but they come in right away, able to be used. And the reason, the reason that John keeps the Wariyama in the offense mode, the attack mode here, is because the Wariyama has higher stats in attack than defense. Ninjin, keeping defense mode as is for, I believe, the similar reason that I got to actually check the stats on. Check the stats on Ninjin. So here, I do want to go for my primary win condition of the deck. I am trying to get La Lorena with the Hungry Ghost and the Aku Aku kind of synergy going on. Also combine it maybe with my Labafena. Labafena, the Blister Pack promo, is the most busted fluoride card in the game, with the exception of La Lorena at the moment. It's very strong. And the primary win condition of the deck is to just kind of play Labafena and just keep looping it back and forth with destroying it with the Aku Aku and then replaying it with the La Lorena. So you can really control the opponent's evidence and just gradually win the game. With the aggressive deck I am playing, it does become pretty fast to, get evidence and early game and lose out essentially on evidence overall later on because you may get outscaled. So just keep that in mind when you're playing a lot of these low drops like, the Marys, Black-Eyed Children in this case, because these low drops, could get outscaled if you don't have any kind of late game. I do play my Ukabur, however you say that guy, with my La Lorena's effect to get out a Cryptid. With her effect, you do have to pay for the vision, so I did have to have the vision to pay for it. And I am able to get a 2/2 counter on Resurrection Mary and trade. So John did not anticipate my ability to get out a patch, essentially, with Utgabur. And Utgabur has Flyer, so he is going to explore that same position as he comes in. With the La Lorena effect, it's important to note that I am basically going to get Utgabur to come out with haste as is right away. So yeah, Utgabur is one of those cards that I wouldn't exactly have max copies of in your deck. It's kind of, I would only run it if you have La Lorena, but it's very situationally strong, as kind of shown by my example here. So here John is in kind of a pickle situation. I'm actually about to win the game right now because I have the Labafena Blister Pack promo kind of sitting out there, which will make me gain 1 evidence automatically. So at this point, I'll kind of give some commentary more in the matchup. What could have John done differently in this matchup against the Fluorite deck? Well, the most obvious thing is he could have potentially put more walls against the Marys, since 6 out of the 10 evidence this game directly came from the Resurrection Marys. So instead of trying to outrace me, I think he should have tried a wall against me, because once my early game is gone, I'm pretty limited as is. Additionally, if you know you're going against La Lorena, I would try to save some removal early on. So there's not much removal he has in his starter deck, but he could have used the Fire and Naga to move La Lorena up into the front row and then try to kill it with a Bigfoot. So you could have potentially tried to do that. If you're playing against a La Lorena deck, you should also pay attention to what kind of cryptids are in the discard pile as is, because the discard pile is, everything everything the Fluorite does with the discard pile is very transparent. You know what went in a discard pile. You know the Utgabur is there. The difference is that if you're not reacting to the Utgabur, giving the +2/+2 patch on a Cryptid and then seeing the combination you're not gonna exactly prepare to play against it super well. So yeah, you just gotta keep in mind like how powerful the discard pile elements are with the deck. I do think right now Fluoride does do super well with the early game aggression, running as low to the ground with Black Eyed Children and the Marys as much as you can, because Fluoride wants their discard pile to be filled up. They want cryptids in their discard pile to get maximum value as is. So definitely keep that in mind if you're playing with Fluoride. There are some really good cards you can upgrade into this deck against any other deck. You could use Mongolian Deathworm, you can use Sinkhole Sam. These are very strong cards as is. More onto the gameplay, John did use the swap card with this Jackalope and Ninja, and he used Jackalope to kind of explore up front, and he used Ninja to explore in the back, which just put him at a little more evidence going on. A little bit more. And he is going to preemptively, he doesn't know what I have, but Fire Naga in the back row, try to protect against me, would be good. But here I actually do win the game with the kind of Luster Pack promo. So overall, if there's one lesson in this first video of the series, I would try to know when you should either race against your opponent or when you should hold back and try to stall. If John had a wall kind of like what he has right now early on, protecting these front row areas, because Fluoride, the problem with Fluoride is they don't have a lot of ways to access these back rows against their opponents. They really focus on these front row sites for evidence gaining. If you know that, it becomes much easier to just wall against them, and then later on they're not going to be able to do a whole lot. So yeah, John did try to capitalize with his swimmers to try to outrace me, but when you're against an aggro deck, you're going to get outpaced very quickly, especially against a Fluoride deck who has a lot of early game creatures, cryptids with 2/1 drop, and has some insane evidence control with the Labafena Blister Pack promo. But I think John is actually a good Cryptid Camp player. I just have a lot more games on him at this point. It is his second game, and he is, right now in real life, he is getting a lot better playing the game. He actually beat me today pretty well. So, John, I congratulate you for getting better at the game and letting me use this video of you.